You wake up tired. You drag yourself through the day tired. You go to bed tired. You take vacations and come back tired. You sleep 8 hours and wake up tired. You cut back on commitments and you are still tired. You blame your job, your schedule, your responsibilities, your lack of sleep, your poor diet, your age, your thyroid, your iron levels, anything that would explain why you are exhausted all the time despite doing everything you are supposed to do to not be exhausted. But the tiredness that will not go away no matter how much you rest, no matter how many boundaries you set, no matter how much you optimize your sleep or your schedule or your workload. This tiredness is not coming from what you are doing, it is coming from what you are avoiding. It is coming from the enormous amount of energy you spend every single day pretending that your life is fine when it is not fine, pretending that you want what you have when you do not want it, pretending that you are living when you are actually performing an elaborate show called My Life for an audience that includes yourself. You are not burned out from working too hard. You are burned out from living a life that is not yours, from getting up every day and doing things you do not want to do, from maintaining relationships that drain you, from pursuing goals that do not actually matter to you, from being someone you are not, from avoiding the massive gap between who you are pretending to be and who you actually are, from refusing to face that you have built a life that looks acceptable from the outside but feels like death from the inside. The exhaustion is not physical, it is existential. It is your soul telling you that something is fundamentally wrong, that you cannot keep doing this, that the life you are living is killing you slowly through the constant energy drain of pretending everything is fine. The primary source of your exhaustion is the energy required to live inauthentically, to maintain the gap between who you actually are and who you are performing being, to show up every day as the person you believe you are supposed to be, rather than as the person you actually are, beneath all the adaptation and performance and self-betrayal. This performance requires constant vigilance, constant monitoring of what you say and how you behave and what you reveal, constant suppression of authentic responses in favor of appropriate responses, constant translation between what you actually think and feel and what you are allowed to express. You are exhausted because you are living two lives simultaneously. The internal life where you know the truth about what you want and what you feel and what you believe, and the external life where you perform the acceptable version, where you maintain the image, where you do what is expected regardless of whether it aligns with what is true for you. The gap between these two lives is where all your energy goes, is constant drain that no amount of rest can restore, because the drain continues the moment you wake up and resume the performance. You go to work and you perform being engaged in work that actually bores you or that you actively hate, but that you cannot admit bores you or that you hate, because admitting it would require facing that you have chosen wrong career, that you have wasted years, that you need to make changes that feel impossible. So you perform engagement, you manufacture enthusiasm, you pretend the work matters to you when it does not. You participate in meetings and conversations and projects as if you care when internally you are screaming or numb or desperately wishing you were anywhere else doing anything else. This performance exhausts you more than the actual work ever could, takes more energy than any physical labor, drains you in ways that sleep cannot restore because the drain is not physical but psychological, is the constant effort of being someone you are not, of pretending to want what you do not want, of maintaining facade that you can never drop, because dropping it would mean facing truths you are not ready to face about how wrong your life has gone. You come home and you perform being happy to be there when you are not happy, perform being present with your partner or your family when internally you are absent, perform interest in conversations that feel meaningless, perform affection you do not feel, perform contentment with domestic life that actually feels suffocating. The performance continues through dinner and through evening routines, and through interactions that should be easy and relaxing but that exhaust you because you cannot be yourself, cannot express what you actually think or feel or want, must maintain the role, must protect others from knowing that you are not who they think you are. The exhaustion accumulates because there is nowhere you can actually rest. no context where you can drop the performance entirely, no relationship where you can be completely authentic without risking rejection or conflict, or the collapse of structures you have built on the foundation of these performances. You are exhausted because you are never not performing, are never actually yourself, are spending every waking moment being someone else. And this constant self-betrayal drains you in ways that nothing can restore as long as the betrayal continues. You think you need rest, but what you actually need is to stop lying, to stop performing, to stop pretending your life is acceptable when it is not acceptable, to stop being who you are supposed to be and start being who you actually are, regardless of whether that person is acceptable to others or whether that person's wants and needs fit into the life you have built. The exhaustion will not go away until the performance ends, until the gap between authentic and performed self closes, until you stop spending all your energy maintaining a life and an identity that does not actually reflect who you are or what you want or how you need to live to feel alive, rather than perpetually exhausted. But facing this would require admitting things you do not want to admit, would require making changes that feel impossible, would require courage you are not sure you possess. So you continue the performance, continue the exhaustion, continue believing that if you just rest more or manage your time better or take better care of yourself, the tiredness will finally go away, never recognizing that the tiredness is the price you pay for refusing to live honestly. You are exhausted from the massive amount of energy you spend managing other people's perceptions of you, from maintaining image and reputation and the carefully curated version of yourself that you present to the world, from ensuring that nobody sees the mess or the weakness or the confusion or the darkness that exists beneath the surface competence. This image management is constant low-level anxiety that never stops, is perpetual monitoring of how you are being perceived, is exhausting performance of having your life together when internally everything feels like it is falling apart or barely holding together. You cannot let anyone see that you are struggling, because struggling would contradict the competent image you have spent years building. You cannot admit you do not know what you are doing, because not knowing would reveal that you are not as capable as people believe you to be. You cannot show weakness, because weakness would make you vulnerable to judgment or to being seen as inadequate or as less than what you have presented yourself to be. So you perform constant strength, manufacture confidence you do not feel, maintain facade of having everything under control when control is illusion you are desperately maintaining through sheer force of will. This performance exhausts you because it requires being on all the time, requires monitoring every word and every action to ensure it aligns with the image you are protecting, requires hiding anything that would contradict the carefully constructed persona. You are exhausted not from actually being strong or capable or together, but from pretending to be these things while internally feeling weak and incompetent and barely functional, from the enormous gap between how you appear and how you actually feel, from the constant effort of ensuring nobody discovers the truth. The exhaustion intensifies because the image you are protecting has become prison, has become identity you must maintain regardless of whether it reflects reality, has become expectation that others have of you, that you can never fail to meet without experiencing it as catastrophic exposure. People think you have your life together, so you must continue appearing to have your life together even when your life is falling apart. People think you are strong, so you must continue being strong even when you are breaking. People think you are fine, so you must continue being fine even when you are dying inside. This creates a situation where you cannot ask for help without shattering the image, cannot admit struggle without revealing that you have been performing competence you do not actually possess, cannot show the real you because the real you contradicts everything people believe about you, so you maintain the performance, you keep up appearances, you ensure that nobody sees behind the curtain, and this constant image management drains every ounce of energy you have until you are exhausted in ways that sleep cannot fix, because the exhaustion comes from living as image rather than as person. You also exhaust yourself managing others' emotions and needs, taking responsibility for how they feel, ensuring they are comfortable even at cost of your own comfort, prioritizing their well-being over your own, being the person they need you to be rather than being who you actually are. This emotional labor is invisible and endless. Is constant monitoring of other states and constant adjustment of your behavior to manage their responses, is putting yourself last while ensuring everyone else is fine even when you are not fine. You cannot express what you actually think because it might upset someone. You cannot set boundaries because boundaries might hurt their feelings. You cannot prioritize your needs because your needs matter less than keeping peace or avoiding conflict or ensuring others are happy. You cannot be honest because honesty might create discomfort that you believe is your responsibility to prevent. So you perform emotional caretaking, you manage reactions, you suppress your authentic responses in favor of responses that maintain harmony, and this constant sacrifice of yourself for others' emotional comfort exhausts you completely. The tiredness will not go away as long as you are spending all your energy managing perceptions and maintaining images and taking care of everyone else's emotional state while completely neglecting your own actual needs and feelings. And the growing resentment and exhaustion that comes from never being allowed to be real, to be messy, to be struggling, to be anything other than the perfectly managed version that keeps everyone else comfortable while you slowly die inside from the effort. You are exhausted from avoiding decisions that need to be made, from postponing conversations that need to be had, from refusing to face situations that require action, from keeping yourself in perpetual state of, I will deal with this later, while the undecided decisions and unheld conversations and unfaced situations accumulate and create constant background anxiety that drains your energy every single day. The avoidance itself is exhausting, requires constant mental energy to maintain. It creates psychological weight that you carry everywhere you go, because you are always aware at some level of what you are avoiding, even when you are actively trying not to think about it. You know you need to leave the relationship, but you do not leave. You know you need to quit the job, but you do not quit. You know you need to have the difficult conversation, but you do not have it. You know you need to make the change, but you do not make it. Instead, you remain in permanent state of knowing what needs to happen while refusing to make it happen, creating exhausting limbo where you are neither committed to staying nor taking steps to leave, neither accepting the situation nor changing it, neither making peace with where you are nor moving toward where you need to be. This limbo is more exhausting than either staying or leaving would be because it requires holding both possibilities simultaneously, requires constant mental energy, evaluating and re-evaluating, and second-guessing and imagining scenarios and weighing options without ever actually deciding, creates perpetual state of unresolved tension that never gets released, because release would require action you are not willing to take. You are exhausted from the decision you will not make, from the conversation you will not have, from the change you will not initiate, from staying stuck while pretending you are not stuck, while knowing you are stuck. The avoidance also exhausts you because deep down you know you are being a coward. You know you are refusing to do what you know needs to be done. You know you are choosing short-term comfort of avoiding difficult action over long-term well-being that would come from facing what needs to be faced. This knowledge creates constant low-level self-disgust, creates contempt for your own weakness, creates shame about your inability to act, that compounds the exhaustion because you are not only avoiding the difficult thing, but are also dealing with how you feel about yourself for avoiding it. You are also exhausted from maintaining relationships and commitments and obligations that you know do not serve you, but that you cannot end, because ending them would require difficult conversations, or would make you appear flaky, or would disappoint people, or would force you to admit you made wrong choices when you committed to them. So you continue showing up to relationships that drain you, continue honoring commitments you regret making, continue participating in things you do not want to participate in, and each forced interaction exhausts you more because you are there physically while being absent emotionally. are going through motions while knowing the motions are meaningless, are performing involvement while internally being completely disengaged. The exhaustion from avoidance is particularly insidious because it disguises itself as the exhaustion from doing too much. It makes you believe you are tired from all your activities and commitments, when actually you are tired from maintaining activities and commitments you know you should not be maintaining, from staying in situations you know you should leave, from postponing decisions you know you need to make, from having life full of things you are doing while knowing that many of these things should not be in your life at all. You think you need to do less, but what you actually need is to stop avoiding, to make the decisions you know need to be made, to have the conversations you know need to be had, to end what needs to be ended, and to face what needs to be faced, rather than spending all your energy maintaining the avoidance, rather than exhausting yourself through postponing what cannot be postponed forever, rather than draining yourself completely through refusing to act while knowing that action is necessary and that the longer you wait, the more exhausting the avoidance becomes. You are exhausted from carrying the weight of unlived life, from the constant awareness that you are not living the life you actually want to be living, from knowing that you have dreams and desires and possibilities that remain unrealized, not because they are impossible, but because you are too afraid to pursue them, from the accumulation of all the things you have not done and have not tried and have not allowed yourself to become, because trying would risk failure or rejection or discovery that you are not capable of what you imagined you could do. This unlived life sits on you like physical weight, creates exhaustion that has nothing to do with how much you are doing and everything to do with the gap between what you are doing and what you wish you were doing, between who you are being and who you wish you were being, between the life you are living and the life that haunts you in quiet moments, when you cannot distract yourself from recognizing how far you are from where you wanted to be. The weight increases every year that you do not live the life you want to live. Every month that passes while you continue doing what is safe instead of what is meaningful, every day that you choose security over authenticity. You had dreams once. You had visions of who you would become and what you would do and what your life would look like. And then you made compromises. You chose practical over passionate. You accepted good enough when you wanted extraordinary. You settled for comfortable when you craved alive. Each compromise seemed reasonable at the time, seemed like mature choice, seemed like accepting reality instead of chasing impossible fantasies. But the compromises accumulated, and now you look at your life and you do not recognize it as the life you wanted, cannot find in it the dreams you once had, cannot remember when you stopped pursuing what you actually wanted and started just surviving and maintaining and getting through days. The unlived life exhausts you because you know it is there. You know what you have not done. You know what you have given up. You know what you have betrayed in yourself in service of being practical and responsible and realistic. And you know that time is passing, that you are getting older, that the window for living that other life is closing or may have already closed, that you may have already missed your chance to become who you wanted to become and to do what you wanted to do because you spent too long being who you were supposed to be and doing what you were supposed to do. This creates grief that you cannot fully acknowledge, because acknowledging it would require facing that you have wasted time, that you have betrayed yourself, that you have chosen wrong paths and stayed on them too long and may now be too invested to change course. So the grief sits unexpressed, becomes background sadness that colors everything, becomes exhaustion that feels like it is about being too busy or too stressed, when actually it is about being too far from the life you wanted, about having settled for a version of life that is acceptable but not alive, that is functional but not fulfilling, that is what you could achieve but not what you actually wanted. You are exhausted from performing contentment with life that does not satisfy you, from pretending that what you have is enough when it is not enough, from telling yourself that your dreams were unrealistic anyway and that you should be grateful for what you have rather than still longing for what you wanted. The performance of gratitude and contentment when you are neither grateful nor content exhausts you more than pursuing the dreams would have exhausted you, creates tiredness that comes from suppressing desires that will not be suppressed, from denying wants that will not be denied, from pretending you are fine with how things turned out when you are not fine and may never be fine with having lived small, safe life when you wanted to live large, meaningful life. The unlived life will exhaust you until you either live it or genuinely grieve it and let it go, until you either pursue what you actually want or make peace with having chosen different path. But as long as you remain in limbo, neither pursuing nor releasing, the weight will continue crushing you, the exhaustion will continue draining you, and no amount of rest will restore energy that is being consumed by carrying the life you are not living. You are exhausted from suppressing your authentic desires in favor of desires that are appropriate or acceptable or realistic, from denying what you actually want in favor of what you are supposed to want, from pretending that you want the life you have built, when what you actually want is something completely different that you are too afraid to admit even to yourself, because admitting it would require facing how wrong you have gone, how much you have betrayed yourself, how completely you have constructed life around what others wanted for you or what seemed safe, rather than around what would make you feel alive. The suppression of desire is exhausting because desire does not disappear when suppressed but goes underground, becomes constant pressure that you must constantly push back against, becomes voice that you must constantly silence, becomes longing that you must constantly deny. You want things you will not let yourself want. You feel attractions you will not let yourself feel. You have dreams you will not let yourself dream, because letting yourself want what you want would mean admitting that you do not want what you have, would mean facing that you have built your life around wrong desires, around safe choices, around what made sense rather than what made you feel intensely alive. This creates constant internal war where your authentic desires keep emerging and you keep suppressing them, where what you actually want keeps trying to surface and you keep pushing it back down, where your real self keeps trying to express itself and you keep forcing it back into hiding, because expressing it would threaten the acceptable life you have constructed, would reveal that beneath the appropriate exterior is person who wants things that do not fit the image, who has desires that contradict the identity you have spent years building. You suppress sexual desires that do not fit acceptable framework, suppress creative impulses that feel impractical or self-indulgent, suppress desires for freedom or adventure or change that would disrupt stability you have worked to create, suppress longings for different life that feel like betrayals of life you already have. Each suppression requires energy, creates pressure, builds resentment, generates exhaustion that comes not from expressing desires, but from constantly preventing their expression, from constantly policing yourself, from constantly saying no to what you actually want in favor of what you should want. The exhaustion intensifies because you know at some level that you are betraying yourself, that you are choosing acceptability over authenticity, that you are living according to someone else's values rather than your own. This knowledge creates constant low-level dissatisfaction, creates sense that something is fundamentally wrong even when you cannot identify exactly what, creates feeling that you are missing something essential even when your life looks good from outside. You are also exhausted from the charade of pretending to want what you have, from manufacturing enthusiasm for life you did not choose, from performing gratitude for achievements that do not actually satisfy you, from acting like pursuing conventional success has made you happy when the success feels empty and the happiness is performance. The pretending exhausts you because it requires constant vigilance, constant monitoring of what you express, constant suppression of authentic responses that would reveal that you are not happy, not satisfied, not fulfilled by the life that is supposed to make you these things. The suppression of desire also creates numbness, creates disconnection from your own wanting, creates a situation where you no longer know what you actually want because you have suppressed your wants for so long that you cannot access them, cannot distinguish between what you genuinely desire and what you have been told you should desire. This numbness is exhausting in different way, is tiredness that comes from being cut off from your own aliveness, from being disconnected from the vital force that comes from wanting and pursuing and expressing authentic desires. You will remain exhausted as long as you continue suppressing what you actually want, as long as you continue choosing acceptable desires over authentic desires, as long as you continue building life around what you should want rather than around what would make you feel intensely alive. The energy required to maintain this suppression is enormous, is constant drain that no rest can restore, because the drain resumes the moment you wake and resume the suppression, the moment you choose again to deny what you want in favor of what is acceptable. You are exhausted from maintaining relationships that do not fit who you actually are, from showing up as version of yourself that the relationship requires rather than as who you actually are, from performing interest and affection and engagement that you do not genuinely feel, from staying connected to people you have outgrown or who you were never actually compatible with, but who you cannot release, because releasing them would mean admitting that the relationship was based on false premises or that you have changed in ways that make the connection no longer viable. These relationships exhaust you because they require constant performance, constant suppression of your actual thoughts and feelings, constant presentation of version of yourself that fits what they expect or need, rather than who you have become. You cannot be honest because honesty would destroy the relationship, cannot express what you actually think because they would not understand or would be hurt or offended. They cannot show who you actually are, because who you actually are is incompatible with who they need you to be or who you were when the relationship formed. You maintain friendships that no longer serve you because ending them would feel cruel or would require difficult conversations you do not want to have, or would force you to admit that you have grown apart or that you were never actually as compatible as you pretended to be. So you continue showing up, continue performing the friendship, continue participating in interactions that drain you, continue pretending to be interested in their lives when you are not interested, continue acting like the connection matters when the connection has become obligation rather than genuine bond. You maintain romantic relationship that no longer works because leaving would be complicated or would hurt someone you care about, or would mean admitting that you chose wrong person or that you have changed in ways that make the relationship unsustainable. So you stay, you perform love and attraction and contentment, you go through motions while feeling disconnected, you participate in partnership while feeling increasingly alone, you maintain the relationship while knowing that something fundamental is broken or missing or wrong, and that staying is slowly killing you through the exhaustion of performing connection you do not feel. These maintained but dead relationships exhaust you more than actual connection ever would because they require energy without providing the nourishment that genuine relationships provide, require constant giving without genuine receiving, require constant performance without genuine intimacy, create a situation where you are never truly alone because you are maintaining these connections but are never truly connected because the connections are performances rather than authentic bonds. You are also exhausted from family relationships that require you to be who you were rather than who you have become, that demand you perform old roles that no longer fit, that cannot accept changes in you and therefore require that you suppress those changes whenever you are with them. You go home and you become a younger version of yourself. You revert to family dynamics that you thought you had moved beyond. You perform being person they remember rather than person you have become, because letting them see who you actually are now would create conflict or confusion, or would threaten family equilibrium that depends on everyone maintaining their assigned roles. This constant code switching between who you are in your actual life and who you must be in these relationships exhausts you because it requires maintaining multiple versions of yourself, requires constantly adjusting your presentation based on who you are with, requires never being able to simply be yourself consistently across all contexts. You are a different person with different people, and the constant shifting requires enormous energy, creates fragmentation where you are never whole anywhere, are never fully yourself in any relationship because every relationship requires different version of you. The exhaustion will continue as long as you maintain relationships that require performance rather than allowing authenticity. As long as you stay connected to people who cannot accept who you actually are, as long as you prioritize maintaining connections over honoring yourself, as long as you choose obligation over genuine connection, as long as you remain in relationships that drain rather than nourish you, because leaving would be difficult or uncomfortable, or would force you to face that you have been performing these relationships for years, while the real you has been alone the entire time. What happens when you finally stop avoiding, when you face what you have been refusing to face, when you make the decisions you have been postponing, when you stop performing and start being authentic, when you release what does not serve you and pursue what you actually want, when you stop maintaining the exhausting life you have built and start building life that actually fits who you are. The exhaustion begins to lift, not immediately and not completely, but gradually you discover that you have energy you forgot you possessed, that you can engage with life in ways that feel vital rather than draining, that living authentically requires far less energy than performing inauthenticity ever did. The relief comes first from no longer maintaining the gap between authentic and performed self, from no longer spending all your energy managing perceptions and hiding truth and pretending to be who you are not. When you stop performing, you discover that being yourself, even when being yourself is messy or imperfect or disappointing to others, requires fraction of the energy that performing required, creates space for actual rest, rather than the fake rest that never restored you because you could never actually stop performing long enough to truly rest. The relief comes from making the decisions you have been avoiding, from finally ending what needs to be ended and starting what needs to be started, from releasing the exhausting limbo of knowing what you need to do while refusing to do it. The decision itself, however difficult, creates movement where there was only stuck paralysis, creates forward momentum where there was only exhausting maintenance of untenable situation, creates clarity where there was only exhausting ambiguity. You discover that the difficult conversation you avoided for months or years takes 1 hour and then it is done, while the avoidance of that conversation drained you every single day for the entire time you postponed it. You discover that making the change you feared requires temporary discomfort, but ends the permanent exhaustion of staying in a situation that was slowly killing you. You discover that the thing you were most afraid of facing is often less exhausting than the energy you spent avoiding facing it. The relief comes from releasing relationships and commitments that do not fit, from saying no to what drains you, from establishing boundaries that protect your energy rather than allowing everyone and everything to make claims on you. You discover that disappointing others by being honest about your limits is far less exhausting than destroying yourself to meet their expectations, that losing relationships that required constant performance creates space for relationships that allow authenticity, that having fewer commitments that actually matter to you is far less draining than having many commitments that you maintain only out of obligation. You also discover energy you did not know you possessed when you start pursuing what you actually want rather than what you should want. When you allow yourself to desire authentically and to move toward those desires rather than constantly suppressing them. The energy that comes from wanting something genuinely and pursuing it is different quality than the energy you spent forcing yourself through days of doing what you did not want to do, is renewable rather than depleting, is enlivening rather than exhausting. The shift is not easy and does not happen overnight. Making the changes requires facing fears you have avoided, requires disappointing people you do not want to disappoint, requires admitting you were wrong about major life choices, requires uncertainty about whether the new path will work out better than the old path. But the exhaustion of making these changes is temporary and productive, is exhaustion that leads somewhere rather than exhaustion that maintains unsustainable situation, is exhaustion that comes from building rather than from destroying yourself, You may lose things when you stop avoiding and start living authentically. You may lose relationships that could not survive your honesty, may lose positions that required you to be who you are not, may lose respect of people who needed you to remain small and manageable and predictable. But what you lose was costing you more than it was worth, was draining more energy than it provided, was exhausting you through requiring constant performance and suppression and self-betrayal. What you gain is your life back, is energy to actually live rather than just survive, is possibility of building life that fits who you actually are rather than maintaining life that fits who you are supposed to be. The chronic exhaustion that no amount of rest could fix begins to lift when you stop avoiding your real life and start living it. A conclusion. You are always tired, not because you are doing too much, but because you are living wrong, are spending your days being who you are not, doing what you do not want to do, maintaining life that looks acceptable but feels like slow death, avoiding decisions and conversations and changes that need to happen, suppressing desires that will not stay suppressed, maintaining relationships and commitments that drain you. The exhaustion is not a physical problem to be solved through better sleep or less stress, but is an existential problem that comes from the enormous energy required to live inauthentically. You exhaust yourself performing a version of yourself that fits what others expect, while the real you remains hidden and unknown. You exhaust yourself managing perceptions and maintaining images, and ensuring nobody sees the struggle or the weakness or the confusion beneath your competent exterior. You exhaust yourself avoiding decisions you know need to be made and conversations you know need to be had and changes you know need to happen. You exhaust yourself carrying weight of unlived life, of dreams you have not pursued and desires you have suppressed and possibilities you have refused to explore. The tiredness will not go away through rest or through reducing workload or through better self-care, because the tiredness comes from living a life that is not yours, from getting up every day and performing existence rather than actually living, from the constant energy drain of pretending everything is fine when nothing is fine, when you are in wrong career or wrong relationship or wrong life entirely but cannot admit it because admitting it would require making changes that feel impossible. The way out is not through resting more but through living honestly, through stopping the performances and the avoidance and the suppression, through making the decisions and having the conversations and releasing what does not serve you, through pursuing what you actually want rather than what you should want, through being who you actually are rather than who you are supposed to be. This requires courage you may not think you possess, requires facing fears you have spent years avoiding, requires disappointing people you do not want to disappoint, requires admitting you have been wrong about fundamental life choices. But the alternative is continuing the exhaustion, is spending the rest of your life tired, is dying slowly from the energy drain of living inauthentically, is reaching end of your life and discovering that you spent it being someone else, doing what you did not want to do, maintaining what you did not want to maintain, avoiding what you knew you needed to face. The exhaustion is your life trying to tell you that something is fundamentally wrong, that you cannot keep doing this, that you need to stop avoiding and start living before it is too late. If you are always tired and the tiredness will not go away no matter how much you rest, stop looking for physical solutions to existential problem. Stop blaming your schedule or your responsibilities or your constitution. Face that you are exhausted from avoiding your real life, from living someone else's version of what your life should be, from refusing to make the changes you know need to be made. The exhaustion will lift when you stop avoiding and start living, when you stop performing and start being authentic, when you stop maintaining life that is killing you and start building life that makes you feel alive.